is written on here. And it's an envelope, right? And the concept of the envelope was actually trying to go with the theme of what I'm going to be speaking about today. So originally I started off writing my lesson on this, an envelope. And yesterday while I was going through it, the Lord placed in my spirit to do it on a presentation aspect. So for me, I transformed everything from here onto the electronic version. All right? So today we are actually going to go through the whole process of this through an electronic version. All right?
Amen.
All right?
Amen.
Amen?
Amen.
All right, so starting off, right? Because it's already prepared. Tithes. That's the topic for today. Which goes well in with what? The envelope, right? Right?
Yes.
We tithe through the envelope, right?
Amen.
Yes.
Amen? All right. So in today's lesson, we're going to be going through it, but it's a little bit different because I didn't want it to be something that I just come up here and speak to you. I wanted it to be somewhat of an interactive aspect. I know from teaching, the more the children interact, is the more they learn. So I'm applying that same process today, right? So we're starting off with the tithes, right? That's the topic. And for me, it wasn't something that I selected on my own. A couple months ago, Pastor, right, came up to me and he said, "You pay tithes?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "You sure?" I said, "Yeah." He's like, "Okay. You ready to preach?" I said, "Sure." He's like, "All right, so what we're going to do, I want you to preach on tithes." Then he turned to me again, "You sure you pay tithes?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Because I don't want you to preach on something, right? And you're not doing it." So that's the story behind tithes, right? And today we talk about what? 10% of tithes that actually goes towards our tithes, right? So what I'm actually going to do, I'm actually going to do everything in 10 today. So as you look right here, there are 10 cards, right? On the screen right there, it says slide 1. So how many more do we have left to go? 9. Thank you. So what are we getting into today? The intention of tithes. When Pastor selected me to do this topic, the first thing that I did was actually, I went through prayer. I started to pray to God that God would give me something that the regular person isn't talking about. And I prayed and I prayed and I prayed, and I never stopped praying until one morning I woke up around 4 something, just there pondering, and finally about after 5, it just dropped in my spirit. And that is a testimony right there. If you never ask for something more, nothing more will ever show up. So today's lesson, right, starting with what I call the intention of what? Tithes, right? So we all know that we tithe, right? But today I don't want to just talk about tithe. I want to talk about the subtitle, which is what? Prove it. The idea of Pastor coming up to me and asking me was because he didn't see the proof. So he had to ask me if I do it. So when we typically look at tithing, right? We're saying, hey, we do it. But can we prove it? So that's what I was praying for God, like, show me something that no one is really talking about. And everyone can go to the biblical scriptures and they highlight all the tithes, right? All the scriptures that highlight the tithes. But the most important one is the one that says, prove it. And what I'm going with this is actually showing you something of what I call the principle of tithes. So, in the concept of there's a tithe, right, in the act that you do, there's a principle that actually comes with it. And the principle is taken from what? Malachi 3 verse 10. And I deliberately wanted to present it this way so I could provide you with the scriptures. This way you don't have to go in your what? Your Bible, and you lose focus on what I'm generally talking about. So the principle, right, of tithe comes from what? Malachi 3 verse 10. And this is the King James Version. And read carefully what it says. Bring ye all the what? Tithes. Tithes come with a what? An S. That means it's what?
Plural.
Plural. That means it's more than what? One. Right? In the storehouse that there may be what? Meat. And if you, depending on what translation you may read, right? The meat, some may say it's food or a resource, depending on which translation. In mine house. Whose house?
Mine
house.
Mine house, right? And what?
Prove.
Prove me now herewith. What did God say? If you bring it, right? Prove me herewith, said the Lord of hosts, if I will not open you the what?
Windows. Plural.
Plural. That means it what? More than one. Of heaven, and suppress you out of a blessing, that there shall not be room enough to receive it. Amen?
Amen.
Why you say amen with me?
I agree.
I don't understand.
Huh?
I don't understand. Suppress you is like a negative, and
Oh,
and prove me now herewith. Like, what does that mean?
okay. I'm glad you said that, Joe, right? I'll fix that real quick. The principle of tithe says what? If you bring them, not it, if you bring them, right? Then the windows will open in the form of a what? Blessing. So this is a principle, this is a law that goes with tithes.
Right.
It says if you bring it, the windows would open up. And what did you say, Joe? It said, it didn't say suppress.
Right.
It says what?
Open.
No. It says it
Pour.
was pour.
Pour out.
So when I'm saying suppress, the reason why I put suppress there is because if you can't prove it, then it was suppressed. But it says, I will pour you out a blessing. You know what pour means? To put into your own life. So it's saying it will pour out a blessing. So the principle behind tithe is what? If you bring them, not it. If you bring them, then the windows, not window, windows will be opened up in the form of a what? Blessing. And that is the context of the principle behind tithe. So we're going to look at the principle behind tithe, because it's one thing that you can say, hey, I tithe. Show it to me. Show me the windows that are opening up for you in the form of a blessing. And this is the toughest part for us to actually see. There's a law that says if you give, you shall get. Right? So if you're tithing, then you shall see something, because in Malachi 3 verse 10, it clearly says that if you bring them, and not me, it says, in my house, prove me. God is saying, prove me, and I'll open up the windows for you in the form of a what? Blessing. So that's number 2. So that's where I'm going with this. I asked God for it. everyone goes around and say, hey, I'm tithing. But show it to me based on the principle. Because if you don't show it to me, right, it's the concept of saying this is a lie. Number 2. So we're moving on to number 3. 3 tithing experience. And this is something that I had to look at from a long time ago. I know Pastor just asked me probably 2 months ago. But this is something that I started to analyze a long time ago. And it was based on these 3 experiences and other things. Member of a church being evicted from her apartment. 2-year church membership. She has 2-year church membership, which means that she's a tithing member. She went to her church and she asked for help. And they denied her. And the reason why I'm mentioning this, because she called me and she was frustrated that she's a 2-year membership of this church and she's been tithing. That's specifically what she said. I've been tithing for 2 years. And I went to the church and asked for help because I was being evicted and they didn't help me. The next one, member of a church going in foreclosure with her home.
30 years.
She was 30 years of another church. And when she went to them, she asked for help because she needed money to what? Pay her mortgage. And her story to me was that she's been going here for 30 years and paying her tithes and offering. And she went for help. And they didn't help her. The next story is borrowed money from the tithe. 14-year church membership. She's been going to church for 14 years, right? Tithing every week. And this is a personal story that's shared with me in the context that this is someone who I look up to. And at one moment I was going through a certain part of my life that I needed help. And I reached out to her and said, hey, I need some money to help make up to pay this bill. She said, no problem, I got you. Because she have a great deal of respect for me and what I do in the community. And the concept behind that now, she said, hey, come and get the money. But what she was going to do, she was going to lend me the money off a credit card. So I said, hey, I don't know, because I already have a card. I don't know if they're going to be able to take a payment off my card and then take the rest off. She's like, all right, let's try it first. So I said, no problem, I'm on my way to go pick up the card. On my way to go pick up the card, when I reached there, she actually said to me, you know what, I'm not going to use the card. Come here with me. And she brought me into this special room which she called her altar, right? And she went in an envelope and she took out the money and said, listen, this is my tithe. And I'm lending it to you. And she gave me every scolding that could possibly come from an elder to a younger person about bringing back the money because it's her tithe. And she doesn't want God to scold her. And she clearly also reminded me that, hey, one time she missed her tithe and God scolded her. So don't let this be the second time. And I said, no problem. Long story short, I was able to pay her back. I text her in the morning, hey, are you home? She's like, yes. So in that retrospect now, I was doing something. So by the time I finished, it was like in the afternoon. I went over there to pay back the money. She didn't know why I was texting her saying, are you home? I went back over there to pay back the money. I ring the doorbell, no answer. Call the phone, no answer. Ring, 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 nothing. So I was like, wow, where is she? Then I look, I saw her card, so I know she's home. In that aspect now, what happened, I'm like, you know what, I'm going to leave. And I said, you know what, let me give it one more time. ring the doorbell, nothing. One more time, call her phone, nothing. Right as I was about to walk away, she opened up the door. And she was startled because she didn't hear me ringing the doorbell. She was downstairs, the doorbell was ringing upstairs, and her phone was upstairs. Within that time frame of me texting her in the morning to me going there, her roof collapsed downstairs. And when I went there and she opened the door and saw me, she was startled because she didn't hear anything. Immediately after I proceeded to go inside, she shared with me what was going on. And it just dropped in my spirit. You're tired. I looked at it from that moment, right? The aspect of it, she didn't find it good enough to tithe in me. She loaned me the money. Because she was saying that this is for the church. But right at that moment, God placed it in my spirit. It was that right there was because of what happened. And look how funny it is. That particular day as I go over there, the roof collapsed. And it was a couple $1,000s that she told me it would cost to fix, compared to little hundreds of dollars that she lent me. And God dropped it in my spirit at that moment that you came right on time to see what happened. Because she didn't sow in you. She just barely believed that sowing is for the church. And you see, these three testimonies that I encountered made me started to look at tithing a whole different way. So when Pastor came and asked me, did I tithe? Yeah. But I do it in a different manner from what I've experienced and what I've learned. So the question that I would ask you, what do you know about tithing? In accordance to what? Malachi 3 verse 10. What do you know about tithing? It's a serious topic. Because every week we come and we say, hey, we're tithing. Right? We're tithing. But it says in Malachi 3 verse 10 that if you bring it, I should open up the windows of heaven for you, in the form of a blessing that you won't have enough room to receive it. This is a principle. This is a principle. A principle is also called a law. And the law of tithing is saying if you bring them, then this is what's going to happen. So my question is, what do you really know about tithing? Because every week we go and we tithe, but yet still you never seen the windows open up enough for you where you can't even control what God is doing for your life. And this is not by Cleus. This is by what? Malachi 3 verse 10. Number 4. So we're at number 4. We have 6 more to go, right? Number 4. Identify the tree. What tree is this? Anyone?
Tree of life.
Tree of life. Anyone else? No idea. Anyone else?
Oak tree.
Oak tree? Alright. What tree is that?
Apple.
Apple
Why are you able to tell me what tree this is, but you're not able to tell me what that tree is?
So that's see that.
Fruit.
You can see the what?
The fruit.
And it says in Matthew 7 verse 16, ye shall know them by their what? Fruit. So you're able to tell me what tree this is based on the fruit, but you're not able to tell me based on that one because it doesn't have any fruit. And this scripture, I'm going to modify it to fit tithing. But I know it's not around tithing. But I'm going to do it. This scripture is actually coming from where it says, beware of false prophets which come to ye in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are raven wolves. Let's modify that. Beware of false what? Tithers, which come to you in what? One form of tithing. But outwardly they can't prove it. You don't see the fruits. And this is not by Cleus. This is by Malachi 3 verse 10. You're able to identify that tree just now because of the fruits. And I'm saying to you, if you're tithing, then it should be the fruit that's in your life that you can say, listen, God said for me to test him. If I bring them, then he will open up these windows in the form of a blessing. In the manner that you don't have enough room to what? Contain them. This is a principle, and when it's a principle, it's a what? It's a law. It's a covenant that God said to us. If we bring them, not it, if we bring them, that's the covenant that God has with us. And the same way you can identify this tree based on its fruit, it says what? You shall know them by their fruits. So what fruit are you producing in your life? Based on what you have tithed. Number 4. This is the very interesting one. Because this one says Luke 21 verse 1 to 4, right? This is the lady, you know the story? About the people who are giving, and it says, and he looked up and saw the rich men casting their gifts into the treasury. And he saw also a certain poor widow casting in thither 2 mites. How many? 2. And he said, of a truth I say unto you, that this poor widow has cast in more than they all. For all these have their abundance cast unto the offerings of God, but she of her penury has cast in all the living that she had. I ask you the question, what do you know about tithing? Because right here, right, Jesus is saying, for all these have their abundance cast in unto the offerings of God. Their tithing is based on what? Their abundance. So when you look at it now, you go to work, and you work, and you get an abundance. And then you say, listen, I'm going to tithe to God. You're tithing from your abundance. So look at this. What if you don't have an abundance? What do you tithe with? Because at this one, the lady, her penury has cast in all her living that she had. It wasn't based on her abundance. It was based on what she had, the living of her life. So look at the concept. It's saying that these people, rich men, they tithe based on their abundance that they get. But Jesus is saying, no, that ain't the right tithing. The best one is the lady who is giving her what? So you look at it now, go to work, you get your abundance, and you turn around and you say, hey, I'm going to give God 10% of this. But in reality, look at what it's saying. The lady who didn't have the abundance was tithing based on what she had. So your tithing is not based on what you can accumulate. It's based on what you had, which is something so simple as 2 mites.
Amen.
I told you, I prayed and prayed and asked God to give me something different. And this is what God gave to me. We walk around and say, okay, we're giving God 1/10 of what we earned. But what we earned is based on our abundance. But this right here is saying, listen, rich men give according to their abundance. But the poor woman who has nothing give her living based on what she had. So I asked the question, what do you really know about tithing? Number 5, show me the proof. Who remember that movie?
Show me the money.
Show me the what? Money. It says, show me the proof. And I'm going back to what? The principle, which the principle comes from Malachi 3, verse 10. So I'm not saying I'm standing here making this up. I'm saying I'm going back to the biblical scriptures. The difference is that I sat down and I prayed and I asked God to give me something different. And as I said, if you never ask for nothing more will ever appear. So the first one is show me the proof, right? Remember, if you bring it or them. If you bring them, then I will open up the windows of heaven for you that you will not have enough room to contain the blessing that I'm going to give to you.
That's right.
Come on, sir.
That's the principle. So that's from Malachi what? 3 verse 10. And this is what I like to do. I like to cross-reference, so I don't just go into one aspect. So I took the concept of second, or should we call it what? 2 Corinthians. All right, 2 Corinthians 9 verse 6, King James Version. But this I say, he which soweth sparingly shall reap also what? Sparingly. And he which soweth bountifully shall reap also. The principle. If you bring them, then the windows of hope will open in the form of a blessing. So if you're not sowing sparingly, right? If you're sowing bountifully, then you should be reaping what? Bountifully. If you're sowing sparingly, then you shall reap what? Sparingly. 2 Corinthians 9:6. When you have sparingly versus bountifully, right? It's the concept of your intention, which is what the title is called, the intention of what? Tithes. Because the difference between what? Sparingly and bountifully is just your intention. Do I do it small or do I do it big? But here's the principle. If I sow 1, how many do I get back? 1. If I sow 2, how many do I get back? If I sow sparingly, what do I get back? Sparingly, right? And it's the concept of the sparingly is actually the rich man. That's what Jesus was saying. Bountifully equals, if you sow bountifully, then you shall reap bountifully. The old lady. Do unto others as you would like others do unto you. That's the golden rule. And that comes from what? Matthew 7 verse 12. What this is saying, based on how you put effort into the sowing, that's what you're going to get out of it. But what intention do you have? Because the rich men were sowing bountifully, but Jesus was saying, no, they ain't sowing. Because they're sowing based on what they got, not what they had. So the church philosophy is that you go to work, you get your abundance, and then you give me what? 10%. What happened to those who are out of a job for a year or 2? What do they sow? Because at that moment, if you're out for a year or two, there's no what? Abundance that can come to you. Because it says if you bring them, then that's how it will work. If you don't bring nothing, then nothing will come. So if somebody's out of work for a year or two, that means no blessing can come to their life because they can't give nothing. And that's the concept of what is sown into our mind.
What if they're doing cardinal, like, so what I'm equating it to, like, right now, we're giving of our time, right?
Yeah.
To me, when you ask what does tithing mean to me, tithing means to me is what I bring into life. So if when I'm here, if I'm sitting here with one foot out the door, I'm tithing sparingly because my intention is not here. But if I'm sitting here and I'm glad to be here and I'm, fervent about the Lord because He loved me first, He's called me here, and I'm answering the call and I want to be here, it's not just because it's Sunday and it's the third commandment. To me, that's tithing too. That's why I think the lady, when she gave, like, that man gave $500,000, but he walked away. I just dropped it, like I couldn't care. I'm not even thinking. I'm thinking about my boat ride on 2 hours from now when I leave church, and she's thinking, I'm just theoretically, like figuratively speaking, she's giving of her heart.
And I'm glad you're saying that, which is why one of the aspects that I brought up earlier was saying the concept of what is normally done is one form of tithing. When it's saying tithes, plural. So there is more than what we accumulate in the form of money that can be used as tithe. Intermission. I want you to really think about what was just said. Because as believers, right, our testimonies we're able to share with other people. So if we're telling someone, hey, let's tithe here and then this shall happen, then we have to prove it. And if we're not able to prove it, then this is a liar. So the intermission that we're doing, right? I tell you, I love it when you just pray and you ask God for something different. So what we're going to do, and if you were in Sunday school today, one of the words that was expressed today is the word hype. We need to hype for what? We need to get a hype for what? You said it earlier.
Oh, hype, enthusiastic.
Enthusiastic, right? So what we're going to do real quick at the intermission, because we're just at number 5, right?